Senator John McCain, welcome back to Brian and the Judge.
Nobody wants you when you're old and gray.
Don't say that.
They all want you.
Why is that about the second or third time I've heard you say to Brian, kill me, bleep you? Senator, always a pleasure. You missed a knockdown drag-out that Brian had with Jesse Ventura a little while ago while you were doing the Senate's business.
Verbal.
On a verbal knockdown drag-out. I wouldn't want it to be physical because I'd have to be between the two of them over whether or not waterboarding is torture. You want to weigh in on that, Senator?
Certainly. I admire and respect Jesse Ventura. He's added a great deal of color to the American political scene. I thank him for his service to the country and the United States Navy. But look, this was a technique used in the Spanish Inquisition. It does bring on the sensation of death. It is clearly qualifies under the category of torture by any measurement. And the United States, under President Ronald Reagan, signed an anti-torture amendment. International agreement treaty. That this clearly falls.
But that was mischaracterized. That's not what I want to do. Is give the CIA all they can do in order to get the maximum information, not revenge, maximum information and intelligence from these guys. What I like to move forward is I just can't believe that Nancy Pelosi called out the CIA on Thursday, and there's no other way to say it. Come on.
Let me just tell you that what I see the left now doing is, well, maybe they forgot, maybe it wasn't. Look, I got a briefing on torture, and I'll tell you, I've forgotten a lot of briefings, but it's an issue like torture. You don't forget. You don't forget. And the fact is that she has now called into question the integrity of the CIA, and we obviously need to have it cleared up.
How?
Well, I think that all irrelevant documents concerning what was briefed would be a nice beginning. But the fact is that I don't believe that the CIA would deliberately mislead the Congress of the United States under any circumstances. And if they did, then they've got to be held accountable. The role of Congress is a few people are designated, a handful, thank God. And by the way, I noticed that Senator Feinstein wants to expand that number. Talk about leaks. But anyway, right. So a handful of people are allowed to be briefed. That's a serious responsibility. It's Congress's oversight role, and I think it's appropriate. And to quote, accuse the CIA of lying to the Congress, thereby the American people, I think is a serious charge.
Well, you're correct under the law, Senator. I mean, the CIA doesn't brief the Congress as a courtesy. It briefs the Congress because the statutes require it to, and the number of people briefed is intentionally limited so as to minimize the leaks. But do we want a farce where Nancy Pelosi is under oath and questioned perhaps by you or Arlen Specter or Jeff Sessions? What did you know and when did you know it?
I'd like to. I think it's important that I'd like to avoid it. I'd like to avoid this going back with these quote truth commissions. We are still in war. We are still in a war in Iraq. Americans are in harm's way in Afghanistan. The struggle with radical Islamic extremism goes on, and that's what complicates this whole detainee issue, by the way. But I really believe that you're going to have some kind of a resolution of the second person in line, third person in line after the vice president, vice president, speaker, claims that, and one of the most important agencies of government lied to Congress. So we got to sort this out. But I certainly don't accept. Well, maybe she just forgot about it, or different versions of the briefing. I remember. I've forgotten a lot of briefings, but I remember, and everybody should, when you start talking about torturing people.
Yeah, and I don't think it was phrased that way. It was like we might do waterboarding or what have you. I was just amazed at the arrogance and why someone would want that fight, and the fact that Leon Panetta would actually side with the CIA and not remain quiet. I think it shows how desperate he is to keep the morale up. I worry, Senator, that they're not going to be as aggressive and they're going to feel like America's behind them because they have our back.
Listen, and I'm sure that the reason why Leon Panetta said and is acting as he is for exactly that reason. These are the most, these individuals that work for the CIA probably are more at risk in war and peace than any other agency of government in many respects. I put them right there with the men and women who wear the uniform. So they've got to have good morale. They work under the most arduous of circumstances. Look at the kinds of missions they carried out early on in Afghanistan and in Iraq. But so we've got to be worried about their morale. The church, I think you would agree with me, Judge, that the Church Commission back in the 70s harmed morale for a long period of time over at the CIA.
I agree. I think it harmed morale. I think it also harmed intelligence gathering.
Right.
Switching gears a little bit, Senator, but one that will come to your desk. The Republican Party is going through some kind of soul-searching now, as frequently happens when they're out of power. And there seems to be two camps. There seems to be the camp of Jeb Bush and Mitt Romney. We're a big tent, and we want everybody as long as they're with us 75, 80% of the time. And then there seems to be the Rush Limbaugh, Newt Gingrich, let's go back to Barry Goldwater, Ronald Reagan roots camp. Where does John McCain fit in those scenarios?
I sit on the side of being an inclusive party and sticking with our principles. Let's not forget that we abandoned one of our fundamental principles of fiscal discipline and caring about the taxpayer's dollar that got us in the problem we're in today. So stick with our principles of being fiscal conservatives and low taxes and less role of government, of strong national security. Those fundamental principles are valid, and we abandon them, or at least some of them, which got us in the trouble we're in today. So, but having said that, if someone disagrees on a specific issue, they should still be included in our party. And we have to recognize that in some regions of the country, particularly the Northeast, we are literally running out of representation of the Republican Party. So let's welcome everybody in. And finally, could I just say, in my part of the country, as well as other parts of the country, the Hispanic vote. The Hispanics are pro-life, pro-small business, lower taxes, patriotic, etc.
Socially conservative.
We've got to recruit social conservatives. We have to recruit and elect Hispanics to public office.
Senator, I want to talk about another area.
So does that make sense, Judge?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does, Senator.
We're in a kind of a needless fight here. Let's expand the party. Ronald Reagan expanded our party, and he did actually say that there's room for people who disagree on specific issues. And pro-life, we are a pro-life party. Republican Party, as long as I will live, will be a Republican, will be a pro-life party. But if there's someone who is pro-choice and wants to be in our party, let's welcome them.
Okay, I haven't said that. I want to go to another area of your expertise, and that's what's going on in Pakistan. I mean, I watched that Prime Minister Zardari speak on Sunday, and if you saw that, Senator McCain, I know you're busy on Sundays. If you're not being interviewed, you like to take it off. But he has so much disdain for the U.S. He commented how we created the Taliban. He commented that we gave more money to AIG than we gave to his country. He commented on how we do these aerial bombs and don't let him have the surveillance. But the sarcasm and the level of disdain I found alarming. Do you get that? Did you get that from Musharraf?
From Musharraf or Zardari?
Zardari, but did you get it from Musharraf, and do you get it from Zardari?
I did not get it from Musharraf. I think we're looking at a politician who's in a very difficult situation, who's staring over the edge of the cliff. His approval rating in Pakistan of Zardari is around 10%. And by the way, his opponent, Mr. Sharif, I would have to tell you in all candor, is not a dramatic improvement, to say the least. So I think we have to remember that they've had failed state after failed state, and the military has taken over. Then they've gone back to civilian rule and back and forth. And their economic situation is dire. They are cooperating with us in a number of areas. Their head of their army, Kayani, does not want to take over the country, but he has developed a very good relationship with U.S. military, Admiral Mullen and General Petraeus. And so, and they have fought back finally against the Taliban as they got within 60 miles of the capital. Look, this is a long, hard, difficult situation. The majority of people in Pakistan reject Muslim extremism. They reject the Taliban. They reject Sharia law. And the military, unfortunately, a large percentage of them still believe the number one enemy is India, not within their own borders. A very, very difficult situation. After having said all that, we have the best general that we have had in one of the top generals in history,
really?
General Petraeus.
I was thinking you were talking about McChrystal. Do you like the switch?
I like McChrystal, yeah. I'm a little worried about his involvement in the Tillman thing. We are getting questions from Mrs. Tillman to ask him. But overall, McChrystal is good. The change in command structure is good. Look, I don't think that Pakistan will fall to radical extremism, but I think we are in for some very difficult times, and a lot of this is bred by a terribly collapsed economy that and a large population. Some hundreds of thousands of refugees now. But we can and must succeed, and if I were president, I would go ahead and order the additional 10,000 troops that the president has said he's delayed. The casualties are going to go up, just as they did after the surge in Iraq, and that's going to feed the anti-war movement in this country. 51 Democrats voted against this package that the House just passed. So we need to stay the course here. It's tough, but Americans' national security interests are clearly at stake.
If you could have, would you have voted? If you could redo it,
yeah.
Would you have voted against the TARP proposal back in September?
Because of the way that it's been mishandled, terribly.
Because it betrays your basic views that we shouldn't spend what we don't have.
Well, the President of the United States, when the President of the United States looks you in the eye and says, unless we pass this, the America's economy is going to collapse. That was the way the message was sent by him, Paulson, and his other advisors. If it had been sent correctly and if it was spent correctly on home ownership, go out and buy people's mortgages and give them a mortgage they can afford rather than what it's turned into.
Right.
I think it's the way that it was handled, my friend, because at the time the stock market had just gone down 700 points and $1.2 trillion of American savings had been wiped out. And the President of the United States said that the economy would collapse if we didn't vote for it. If it had gone in the right direction, in the measured fashion that it was presented to us, maybe the outcome would have been different. Right now, we're committing generational theft, and you're seeing the greatest transfer from the free enterprise system to the government in the history of this country, and I'm scared to death.
Senator, unfortunately, we're out of time. But
I'm sorry for my long answer.
No, Senator, you got to do me
Senator.
one favor.
Yeah.
You managed to say I can't stand Brian, and we lost that tape. Could you have something disparaging to say about me so we could use it when you're not around?
Well, I don't mind Brian over the radio because I think he really does a great job in that respect. It's just when you have to look at him.
That was a little bit too sincere.
Senator John McCain, a trooper to the core. Thanks very much for your time,
Thanks,
Senator.
Brian. Thanks, Judge. See you. Bye.